Imagine for a moment that you're sailing your very own boat across a beautiful, deep blue ocean. Waves lapping against the hull while a fresh sea breeze brushes across your face and fills your lungs. You feel the ultimate sense of freedom in your hands as you hold the helm and point the bow onward towards a clear horizon. You know that you're living life to the full. Unfortunately, because of your little daydream, you've hit something and now your sailboat is rapidly sinking. The life raft has been deployed, and you've got 60 seconds to grab the 10 most important items on your sailboat before it turns into a submarine. What would you grab? What's most important to you? What will save your life? Or perhaps to keep you sane while you're out in the ocean all alone, floating in this special little neon orange waterbed tent. I hope I never have to abandon ship, but if I do, this is what I'm taking with me. Starting off the list at number 10, peanut butter. Peanut butter is just so hard to beat. This one jar right here has 6,300 calories in it and 245 grams of protein. That's quite a bit to sustain you. You think about how many of these you could just chuck like a fastball into here, it'd be pretty quick. Also consider the price it would cost to have these just in your cupboard ready to go to be thrown into this huge door right here. It'd be pretty easy, pretty cheap. So that's why for number 10, peanut butter. I find it's the ultimate sailing food, doesn't need to be refrigerated, it's a super long shelf life, tastes really good. The salt actually isn't as much in this as you would think, which obviously being out here, you'd have to really watch your salt intake. But overall, I think peanut butter would be a great choice just to sustain yourself until you can start fishing and get some really good protein going. Number 9 is my cell phone. Yeah, I know, right? Not what you would expect. We're still pretty high up on the list, so we're not really down to the absolute essentials just yet. So give me a little bit of slack here and hear me out. My cell phone in particular is waterproof in a waterproof case, but salt could still be a problem, and that's why I like to have that waterproof case on it to keep all my contacts safe. I will later on in this video be showing you how I can charge this, so that'll keep it going a bit longer. But alright, what can this cell phone actually do when you're out here in a life raft? Quite a bit. I do have some movies saved on here, you know, some music, things like that, and that really would make a huge difference for morale while you're stuck inside this little orange tent out in the middle of the ocean. I've also got chess on here, Audible books I'd like to actually get a chance to finally listen to. There's quite a bit on here, but also I have Navionics on here. The GPS on this cell phone will work anywhere in the world. So Navionics will let me know exactly where I am, I can start tracking my progress, do many other things. Number 8. Emergency fishing supplies. Doesn't take up a lot of room, does quite a bit. There's actually quite a bit you could do with this besides fishing, but let's just talk about the fishing real quick. The reason this is so successful out here, and you often hear about those adrift catching things like mahi-mahi, is because this life raft becomes the only bit of structure out on the surface in a vast ocean. So imagine you're on a desert or a great plain somewhere, and there's just nothing and nothing, nothing. If you see a tree, if you saw a building, if you saw anything at all, you would go towards it, you would go check it out. That's exactly what mahi-mahi and other fish do. You also have to get bottom growth at the bottom of your dinghy, which I actually already have after being only in the water for a week with this thing. So that all comes together to make a little ecosystem for the small fish to come there, and then the bigger fish like mahi-mahi will come underneath it. Survival stories often tell about how the mahi will hit the bottom trying to get at the other fish that are underneath there, and it'll wake the people up and they'll be pretty frustrated by it. But hey, it's a great source of protein. Throw this out there, hook one of them, reel them in. You gotta be careful because you do have a hook here that could get caught in anything else. As well, a mahi-mahi is a very powerful fish, so you gotta be very careful with that. I recommend tying a bit of rope, making a noose out of it, and as soon as you catch them, try to slide it down their body and noose their tail. That way you can hold them there while you beat them with the paddle to knock them out. That's my recommendation. And as well then, mahi-mahi is delicious to eat raw. It's just sushi out here in the life raft. As well, something else cool you could be doing with this is you could be repairing things, fixing things. If you had to, you had a bad enough cut, you could even use it to suture yourself. It's not exactly what I want to be doing, but it just goes to show that this little piece here could really be the difference between life and death out on the open ocean in a life raft. This is probably the cheapest and most efficient thing here that I'm going to put on this list today. So it kind of has a special place in my heart, even though it's only number 8. Number 7, multivitamins. Get your Flintstone gummies. Daily multivitamins aren't something I ever hear about people putting in life rafts, but I think if you're gonna be stuck out potentially on an ocean for up to a month and longer like some are, if you have the chance, it doesn't take up much space, the bottle's waterproof, and I think it could really mean the difference. I imagine that you're out here and maybe you do catch fish, maybe you don't, but either way your body starts to eat away at your first available fats and then eventually your muscles. And eventually your body starts to get deficiencies of, very important minerals. So you could have long-term damage from that even after you're saved. What I sort of imagine with this is, yes, you catch a little bit of fish and obviously you've got your rainwater, so you're having your caloric intake and your protein and obviously water. But then taking this as well means your body's gonna get all the other vitamins and minerals that it needs. So just imagine how much of a difference this could make to enjoying your life when you're out in the life raft versus becoming, I guess, malnourished while you're out here. Number 6, spear gun or pole spear. They make spear guns in all different shapes and sizes. The one I showed a minute ago that I don't want to bring into here is my pride and joy that I've taken with me spearfishing literally around the world, from the tropics up in towards the Arctic. Instead, what I have in here is the Headhunter pole spear that I used when I was in the Bahamas. You can see this collapses down, and even this forward section here could collapse down as well. Then when you're ready for it, start putting it all back together, tie off your end piece here when they see the mahi-mahi around, and go for the spear. The reason I like this better than the hook and line is you pretty much know that there's gonna be mahi-mahi or other fish are gonna come underneath the life raft eventually. Hook and line is good, but I just know sometimes there's big fish that come in and one big score could really set you up well. Personally also, I'm not very good with hook and line, but I know I'm pretty good with a pole spear or a spear gun. Could be a little bit dangerous though, you gotta be careful not to pop anything. I think having something to protect your tip would be highly important here. But either way, once you do get this all rigged up, ready to go, you can guarantee yourself a big dinner. Number 5, a good waterproof light. A good waterproof light is incredibly important for a number of reasons. First up, if your boat does sink at night, it's gonna be really hard to get anything done if you can't see what's going on, as well as the chaos and everything going around you. Having a light makes a huge difference. Certainly when you first get into your life raft, having a headlamp would be the best, but it's hard to get a truly waterproof headlamp. This flashlight, however, I think I can take this thing down to 100 feet, and I think I have, and it's just fine. Also, during the daylight or at night, this makes an excellent signaling tool. If you start flashing this near anything, they're gonna know something's going on there. Remember, 3 flashes is the international SOS. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let them know you're there. Number 4, an emergency survival Watermaker. Yes, I know this is a plastic bag. Out of everything on my list, this is one thing I don't have for a very good reason. They're crazy expensive. An actual emergency Watermaker is a little hand pump device you use that, very much like the Watermaker on my sailboat, but much smaller, just uses that extra force that you're putting into it to actually press the salt water through a filter so fine it only allows pure fresh water to pass through. It really does not make a whole lot of water. It really is just enough to get by. The energy you use to actually make it can sometimes be a bit dehydrating, and it's a bit of a lost cause depending on the heat. Something you definitely want to be doing at night, or at least some way you can stay cool. But if you can't do that, a nice alternative is simply a plastic bag. You can take this, get some seawater into a bowl, put the bag over it with a little bit off to the side, oh, just like that. That collects the condensation as it comes down, or the evaporation. The salt water will evaporate up, collecting, leaving the salt behind in the little pool, collecting up on the bag, and then drip off to the side where you can collect it to drink. I believe you can also buy those in an inflatable form, so you could have that tucked somewhere away in here, blow it up like an inflatable bowl. It'll have that on there, ready to go. Kick it out just a little bit away from the life raft so you have it floating next to you. Let it do its job while you relax here, hopefully out of the sun. And there you go, you've got water. Water really is the most important thing. The human body can only go, I believe, 3 days without water versus the human body on average can go more than 4 weeks without food. It's pretty incredible. Number 3, a wetsuit. Yes, I know it's pretty warm where I am now, but it's not always this warm. All right, well, down to the top 3, and if you notice, I'm not wearing a shirt and I have shorts on that's wet, and I'm still pretty warm. So why on earth am I saying grab a wetsuit? Well, this is a pretty small and pretty light one, but in general, you're not gonna be in the warmest area possible. Oftentimes, your boat might go down and it's gonna be even just a little bit colder, could be enough over time to send you into hypothermia. Right now, I'm in a 4-person life raft, but just by myself, it actually gets pretty cold. As well, the floor used to have a mylar and slightly insulated layer to it, but that got torn up, so I just ripped it out. And now I've noticed with just the water underneath me here, that absolutely sucks away my body heat. If I just laid down with my bare back against this, I would actually start to shiver after, might take a few hours, but still. And that's during the daylight. So at night, This wetsuit on me would make a huge difference. I might not even have to wear it. Even just putting it down between my body and the floor could make a huge difference. Number 2, my dinghy emergency case / medical kit. Let's see what's inside. All right, so far on this list, you might think I've just been picking ridiculous stuff. Maybe I have been, but I think that stuff is actually very important considering what number 2, and you'll see number 1 in a minute. But this case is very important to me. This case always goes with me when I go out on adventures with my dinghy because it has medical supplies in it, as well as a few other things that are very important. Let's take a look. Right in here, I have my extra EPIRB, an older ACR, but still works just fine. So if something does happen to me, I can pop this. The GPS signal will be sent to emergency responders. Very important. Next up in here, handheld VHF radio with, this is very important, the battery charged. This is great just in case you have anybody nearby so you can send a quick SOS. Also, if you were to see a cargo ship on the horizon, but they don't see you, radioing to them, they would hear that and they would be thinking, who's radioing us out here besides a life raft? So it'd be a great way to get picked up and to get saved. Next in here that I keep always ready to go, and remember this case is really meant for my dinghy adventures, but I would still throw it in anyway, especially because it's a waterproof case, why not? Tourniquet. Really have this in here because I do a lot of spearfishing near a lot of sharks, and this thing is just there ready to go. And I practiced it with pretty much anybody I've taken out with me. Very important to have. Next up, I've got a signal mirror with a little compass here. A lighter, which might not be as helpful out here, but you never know in case you wash up on a tropical, remote, deserted island. We could only hope. Trauma shears, which have all sorts of useful applications. And then a small emergency medical kit that really has the basics, but a lot of what I might need. This case together is great as well. If I feel like it's crowding me up in here, I could tie a little piece of rope to it and let it float along next to me. All right, number 1 thing I'm gonna grab if my boat sinks, drum roll, this. What is this? This is my Sailboat Ditch Bag. This is why I've been skipping a lot of things because they're all contained in one item. Let's see what's inside. This thing is fairly heavy. It probably weighs about 15 pounds, but it also floats, which is great. So if I want to, I can tie this off to the side of the boat and I know I've still got my stuff nearby. This, like I showed you before, has all my flares and other emergency supplies in here. So it's a great thing to have, and really any boat, any captain should have a go-to ditch bag. It's absolutely essential. I don't know of any proper sailing boat that doesn't have one of these. This is the number 1 thing I'm gonna throw in a life raft if my boat goes down. So these were the top 10 items I thought would be the most important to bring with me into a life raft if my boat sinks. What did you think? What would you have brought differently? What would you have done differently? Let me know in the comments below. And will somebody please rescue me from... One last thing I want to show on this life raft is that it's been in the water for only a week now, I think. And look at that, look at all this growth, all this marine growth that's on here. I'm actually gonna pull it out of the water so I can stop some of this, but this just goes to show you how tenacious life is in the ocean. And you really will attract quite a bit of life. A closer look at what it's like living in this thing. As you can see, it's pretty darn small. Imagine being in this for months at a time. And you can see it's already deflating on me. Will someone come rescue me?